Okay, we are going to next hear from Mark Manning. He is a documentary filmmaker. He actually went unembedded into Fallujah right after the American siege on that city, reported for 3 weeks. Incredibly important to humanity, the stories that you brought back. I want to introduce Mark Manning.
Thank you. Is that loud enough? No. Oh. Okay. I guess I have the honor today to be here to begin with, but also to be representing unembedded journalists in Iraq. And I want to talk a little bit about that aspect of this war. I went into Fallujah to try to report what was happening there in an opposing view of what the mainstream media was reporting about Fallujah. And what I found there was pretty much the opposite. I'd been studying the reports prior to the siege about the people there that had been evacuated safely, who had all gone to stay with their relatives, and that the city, I'm probably repeating what you already heard, but just in case you hadn't, the city was taken over by al-Zarqawi and was infested with terrorists. They love that word, infested. And then this battle happened in between the resistance fighters and the military. And it was a victory, and the town was liberated for the Iraqi election. So we got there and found, like I said, the opposite, that 250,000 civilians had been thrown out of the city with nowhere to go. They were living in makeshift camps that they had dug holes in the ground. A lot of them had to walk out of the city. There was no supplies for them, no food, no water, no shelter. The water was contaminated with the toxins of war. The children were sick. It was in the middle of winter. As you know, probably in Iraq, winters can get very cold. It was rainy. Again, no supplies, no consideration, no modality for the civilians. They'd just been thrown out. Then we ended up staying with them, and then we went back into the city with the first returning civilians. The city had been cordoned off, turned into a makeshift, pretty much concentration camp. They were retina scanning everybody. And then the people left in the city had been pretty much considered what's called enemy combatants. It was a live fire zone, so anybody who had been left in the city pretty much had been killed. There's estimates that 5,000 civilians were killed in the city. And I went to a couple of mass graves there. There was 700 in one, there was 600 in another, there was 1,000 in another. And these graves had multiple bodies. And most of the headstones had women's names and children's names. I think they killed 1,600 fighters there. So to get to 1,600 fighters, they destroyed the city and they killed all these civilians. That was not reported in the media. Fallujah is a 40-minute drive from the Green Zone, where all of the mainstream media had been camped out. So this was, to me, a crime against humanity, the reporting of Fallujah. Now, the journalists that were there, that were embedded, I think they reported the point of view of the American military and their fight. That, to me, is a very important view and should be covered. The problem that I see with embedded journalism is it creates in an occupation the fact now, from the Iraqi point of view, journalists are the enemy. They become part of the occupation. So as an unembedded journalist, you have to spend a lot of your time trying to figure out how to safely move around and conduct interviews with people that consider you now an enemy. So when we would go to interview families, or we would go to interview people, the first usually 2 days are spent in negotiations trying to convince them that you're not part of the corporate media, that you are actually there to tell the truth, and that you will do that. And it makes it extremely dangerous and extremely hard to carry out this kind of reporting. A quick, what, I got a minute left? Yeah. I want to tell my favorite journalism story in Fallujah. We'd been in there for a week. We had seen, again, no aid, lots of dead bodies, dogs eating dead bodies, absolute devastation to the population there. We saw all of a sudden a major military operation starting, helicopters, tanks, Bradleys. So we walked over there to see what was happening. I had a beer and a kafia, and I pretty much blended in so I could do this kind of thing. We walked over, and a troop transport pulled up. Some tanks sealed off the block. The troop transport opened, and a bunch of guys in orange jumpsuits came out with brooms and shovels. Started shoveling the street in this devastated area, and then a Humvee pulled up, and a CNN crew came out. And they filmed the people shoveling the street. A CNN crew came out and filmed this stage reconstruction of Fallujah, where they were throwing candies to kids to get the kids come out, and then they made this quick report, left, the guys in the orange jumpsuit left, and they aired it as the reconstruction of Fallujah. They filmed the checkpoint lines of people tending to get retina scanned and said it was a line for people to vote. So the media is definitely complicit in the war crimes in Iraq, and that's just one 8-day period of a 3-year war. Thank you.